Welcome to the Poke It podcast with me, Pete Jenkins, and my co-host, Nicola Cairncross. In the show, we'll be getting deeply interested in everything and everyone, including business and entrepreneurship, investing, crypto, great films, books, and sci-fi, served up with great food and wine, and a little bit of gamification, and the odd guest thrown in for good measure. You can join in the conversation anytime at the Poke It podcast private group on Facebook. Now, let's see what we're going to be poking at today, shall we?
We better introduce ourselves, really, not just plunge straight in. So I'll do that this week. Welcome, everyone. Nicola Cairncross here, and you are listening and watching the Poke It podcast. Brand new from me, Nicola Cairncross, nicolacairncross.com and clicksandleads.com, and from Pete Jenkins here at gamificationplus.uk. Is that correct?
That's correct. And petejenkins.com. Why not?
Of course, petejenkins.com. Yeah, so here we are. We're poking it as we go along. That's our word for seeing how things work and trying things out. So, Pete, tell us what we're experimenting with this week.
We're experimenting with connecting this conferencing platform we're using for the podcast to YouTube and broadcasting ourselves live this week.
Well, allegedly.
Allegedly live on YouTube.
Yeah, let's. I'm gone to the home page, and I can't see anything that says anything about anything going live.
Oh, really?
Top news, YouTube. Nothing happening that I can see.
No, I agree.
Yeah, disappointing. Have to figure out what happened there.
Well, who knows?
Yeah.
I've got like 5 YouTube channels. Maybe I connected it to the wrong one.
Oh, no. Shall I tell you about my week then while you go and have a look and see what's happening there? Okay.
Well, what have you been up to? I mean, if it's anything like mine, it's been really busy. So it's here. What has Nicola been up to?
Well, it's been quite a full week. I haven't really been. Oh, well, that's not true, actually. I went out on the Raz with my daughter on Friday night. Supposed to be just come for a pint, Mum, and it ended up with all the kids in the crown in the garden. And it was such a lovely evening, and it just went on, really. And I really thoroughly regretted it the next day because, of course, then, once you've had a few drinks, she says, Mum, can we all come back to ours? Yes, go on then. And so we had about, how many was it? About 15 kids? Well, kids, young adults. Oh, yeah, it was like a mini party. Luckily, we've got some very tolerant downstairs neighbours. And that was really good. Knocked out quite a bit of the weekend, that one. But I had to take it I had to be very gentle with myself on Saturday, which wasn't great as I was supposed to be starting the promotion for my next Clicks and Leads challenge, which will be all over by the time you watch this.
Unless you're watching it live right now, in which case it's just about to start.
It is just about to start, yes, exactly. And the most annoying thing of all is that Facebook have shut my ads account again. I'm deeply, deeply, deeply fed up with this because I haven't actually advertised since the last time they shut my ads account, and I appealed and they reinstated it. So I can't possibly see what they've got to object to at all. It's all run by algorithms. There's no humans to talk to. It's absolutely infuriating. And I'm the most vanilla advertiser you've ever come across. I'm so well behaved and compliant with their terms and conditions, but there you go. But exciting last week on Friday before I went to the pub was we premiered our episode 3.
We did.
And I made a note of that we had already got in 3 episodes 9 subscribers and 35 views, in spite of not an awful lot of upfront promotion, because I wanted to save most of the promotion until we went live on iTunes and Google Play, and I think we're still waiting for Google Play, but we're definitely live on iTunes now. So
yeah, it hasn't even gone on my monthly newsletter yet because that comes out at the end of the month.
Oh, right, okay, good. Well, I did wonder what you were, going to get your finger out at some point. And so it definitely was a good fun thing to do, the premiering on YouTube. So I've set it up again for the episode 4, which I think is our best episode ever.
So far.
So we're premiering that at 1:00 tomorrow, Friday. So every Friday, 1:00, I will be there. Pete will be there. Commitments willing. Yeah. So to answer questions as we go through the podcast via the chat, which is quite exciting and nice. The search for the cleaner has commenced for both our households, and I've had about 10 replies some of which sent me emails as instructed, but didn't include their phone numbers. So that wasn't a great start. But I'm going to weed through those at the weekend because obviously we're very busy now. We need help. I need help.
There's like one clean patch, yeah, just behind the video screen.
And even that's not that clean. I can see that light switch could do with a bit of a wipe. But what else has happened? Bitcoin's been very exciting this week indeed. It's been, it made it up to 12,000 about a month ago, and then it dropped back again, and it's been consolidating ever since, which is good news actually, because it was quite a big rise from sort of 8.5, 9, and then it went straight up to 12, and then it needed to come back down and consolidate. So I'm very happy with that, and it's now edged up to 12 again one more time, and it's now hovering around 11.8, 11.9. So it's making a really good solid base there, which is great.
Nearly all of my chances of Bitcoin purchase are profitable. Not all.
Nice.
But most now.
Nice. Okay, that's really good. And of course, Pete, we've both listened to the Anthony Pompliano interview with Michael Saylor, who is the CEO of MicroStrategy, who's one of the two very big firms who've put some of their capital reserves into Bitcoin.
A massive amount. Yeah.
Well, 500 million nearly. But he managed to, he couldn't announce it obviously while he was doing it, and it's episode 385 of the Pomp podcast. If you want to, you can watch it on YouTube or listen to it on your platforms. But absolutely gripping story about how he got started in business, how he started buying one-word domain names like voice.com and things like that, and how he started selling them, and they offered him 100 grand and he got them up over $1 million, didn't he? And so good stories. 30 million for one of them. Yeah.
That's the first podcast that's captured me for a full hour and a half of the podcast length as well.
Well, it actually got even better towards the end because he started talking about the whole, how he'd put not just himself on a crash course about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin in particular, but how he'd put his whole financial team on, all the board of directors and the shareholders. And all of those clever minds all came up with the thing that, yes, they needed to put some of their money into Bitcoin to hedge against inflation. And it was interesting what he was saying about inflation running at 25% in real terms rather than the 2% that's typically publicized.
Yeah, asset inflation. It's an interesting thing to keep in mind.
Yes, that your assets, he was said, watching the millions, he said it was great to be in such a good cash position, but watching the millions melt away at 25% per annum wasn't a very attractive prospect for him at all. So it's so interesting hearing about how you go about buying that kind of Bitcoin without moving the price. If you tried to put that on the exchange in one go, it would jump the price dramatically. So fantastic podcast interview, really enjoyed that. And it's been quite a busy week. What about you?
Where was I? So I had an activity weekend. So it was
I saw the picture of you bouldering.
I was going to get to that. I'm still recovering from that.
Are you?
We finished, Jess and I, finished doing the Sussex Ouse Valley Way walk on Saturday, which is a really pleasant walk, which we broke into 4 chunks, and that was the last chunk. And we ended up going to the Plough Inn at Lower Beeding for our post-walk beer. And sat in the garden. There was live music. It was the first time I've listened to live music since lockdown. Yeah, which was fun. However, I did notice that all the locals were really interesting because they were socially distancing. They were trying to sit in tables of like 3 or 4 or 5. But every time that new one would come in to the garden, they were like waving to people and doing the elbow nudge. And then if someone tried to say something, because of course it was very loud music, they would just immediately lean in very close just to the face and get breathed on as they heard it. And then that person would circulate. And I was just like, we were hiding in the corner going, if anyone has it here, they've all now got it. Just because.
Well, I think that's true anyway, isn't it, really? If Upper Beeding, it's a tiny little place.
Lower Beeding, it's the other end.
Lower Beeding, right. We got Upper Beeding and Lower Beeding.
I grew up in Upper Beeding. There you go.
Did you? I didn't realise that. Very in between here and Stenning.
Yeah.
Don't ever get trapped in a number 2 bus on going between the two. It's very painfully slow and endless.
This is very true.
Yeah.
So that was Saturday. Then Sunday, we went kayaking on a local lake. Went kayaking across a lake, went for a picnic, kayaked back. and then had a nice walk on the hills. So that was fairly active. And then, as you mentioned, we went bouldering Monday night, which both of us have a fear of heights, so that's good. Good start.
Oh, okay.
But it's not too bad. I only fell off once.
Wow. And you had the harness on and everything, didn't you?
No, bouldering is no harness.
Really? So what did you fall onto then?
Crash mat.
Oh, okay.
But bits of it are 4 or 5 meters high, so I landed all right. So it's okay. However,
right.
2 hours of it, which is like your introducers thing, is quite a lot of effort.
Yeah.
So in the morning, we're both like, can't move.
So did you know before you met each other and got to know each other that you were both so active?
Right. So the thing we had in common was we both travel a lot for work.
Yes.
So and now filling that gap, I guess, in our lives.
Yeah. Okay. I definitely have to grill any potential suitor, because if I met one like you, it would be an absolute nightmare.
Oh, I know. So still, my favourite bit of Sunday was actually not the kayaking. It was the lying in the sunshine reading my book for 2 hours afterwards.
Nice. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, you're a reader as well as an active person. That's quite an interesting combination.
Yes. Try not to combine the two because you walk into things.
Yeah, that's true. I did used to try and read and walk when I was a kid. Hilarious. So we've had some good feedback on the podcast, as well as the numbers. We've had people joining the group, the private group on Facebook, and we've had one of my previous clients, who used to work all over the world. She's worked in India and Africa, and she's now back in Yorkshire because of, obviously, what was it she said? I said, what are you doing back in Yorkshire? She said, 2 coups and the Ebola outbreak would that was what did that. So she's
not the second coup, but the combination of all 3.
Yes, exactly, with the Ebola. Yeah. So so anything else to report on your week? Anything about work?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, work's been really busy. What can I say? I've got a new approach for my awards. It's bigger, it's bolder. It's been inspired by how many people were interested in helping and being involved in it.
Oh, okay.
So, in essence, I hold the global awards, and then we're looking at
regional, country,
nation,
yeah.
And there's quite a lot of interest in that. And that, for me, I think is really interesting because I want to. That's the best way to encourage a global reach, isn't it?
Yes, and having other people being enthusiastic was enough for you to feel like you wanted to carry on with it.
No, it's always enough. It's a show.
Oh dear. Yeah, we'll see what happens about 2 months down the line when none of them have done anything.
Always an issue, but there's money to be made as well. It should more than cover its costs. These days, the virtual awards, it's website, it's marketing. There's a physical cost to the actual trophy, and that's it really. So it's about paying for people and time.
Yes, and of course, virtual awards is a different offer entirely to one where you have to commit up front to a huge venue and get people to travel in. Yeah,
well, particularly with global, it's really difficult to get people to fly halfway across the world on the off chance that they win a prize.
Yeah,
or take a team of 8 and take a whole table at an awards dinner.
Yeah, it must have got a lot. Well, hopefully a lot easier.
Yeah, but interestingly, we can have that bit with the country-based awards.
Yes.
Yeah, so we can still have that element, and then still have the kudos for winners. So anyone who wins a country-based award will obviously automatically get entered into the global awards.
Right.
Yeah. So if you win one, you might win 2.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So you, and because you've run. How many awards have you done so far? Is it 2?
Actually, this will be the 4th year.
4th year. Wow. Okay. So you've done 3. So you can guide the people in the countries who are steering their country part of it. You can guide them through the whole running a physical award as well, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm thinking of it from like a franchise point of view, so that we look after the brand and the sub websites and things like that to make life really easy for them. So they just concentrate on getting local sponsors, putting the word out, and doing the marketing. Really. Yeah. That's the bit that I could really do with their help on. Yeah. Yeah. The thing on the ground. Yeah. Local knowledge. Yeah. Local communities, that sort of thing. That's that.
And how was? Didn't you do something big with your university people on Friday as well?
Yes, but the most interesting thing for me this week was actually I've completely redesigned my year-long gamification module at the university, and I've got complete buy-in from my co-lecturer because we went through it in detail, and we're both super excited about what I've got planned for the students.
Are the students though? That's the question.
They should be. I mean, they're going to have to work harder than previous years.
Well, that's good.
On fun stuff, I think.
Yeah.
Really engaging. And it's all come out of like the feedback from delivering corporate workshops over the last 3 years, the bits that work, the bits that people actually end up implementing. So I think it's going to be a much more practical course for the students than they might get from just a normal lecturer who doesn't do the day-to-day stuff in the corporate world at the same time.
Yeah, good stuff.
Lucky so-and-sos.
Yes. Well done. That's great. I mean, a great busy week on all fronts then.
Yeah, got a new consulting client, and I've got 3 more potential ones. So actually, if all 3 come off, I'm at capacity.
Wow.
So we'll know within a few weeks. On
well,
that
that's
one.
good. Ending the year on a much higher note than it started. That's for sure. Oh my God. Yeah. So now you're in charge of this week's topic of the week. So
yeah, although actually it was inspired by someone's comment in our podcast Facebook group.
Oh, that's Jenny that I was talking about.
Yeah, she said let's talk about exporting, and one of my titles is export champion for the DIT for the Department.
What's the DIT?
The Department for International Trade for the UK.
And how did you acquire this latest in a list of many titles?
This is my 2nd year as an export champion. I acquired it because we won, as a company, the Board of Trade Award for Export for our work over the 3 years up to 2018. And we won that award in January or February 2019, last year.
So what were you? Okay, I'm going to be the village idiot here, okay, and or what, as my other friends call Mrs. Midwit, middle class and doesn't really know much about anything. Let me be the village idiot. So
okay.
I'm astonished to hear you won an export award, because one always feels that exports are physical things, and you're exporting what?
Me, generally, that's what I was exporting.
Okay.
Yeah, exporting knowledge. Yeah, so there were 3 parts to our export journey for me. One is we run a conference and it travels around Europe. So any sales we make for that from other countries, because the first conference alone, people traveled from 35 different countries to attend. And that we held that in Brighton. So that was a third of our audience came from other countries that year. And that's continued in following years wherever we've held it, and we move it around Europe. So pretty much all the money that's generated from that doesn't come from the UK, it counts as exports. That's
okay.
And then obviously I've been speaking at conferences and running workshops abroad, and so in fact my top export country for that was Singapore. So that's brought in quite a lot of money over the past 3 years.
Yeah.
Until this current period, obviously.
So that's another thing, isn't it? That you think of exports as something physically going out to another country, whether it's products or now I know knowledge. But actually they were coming to something in England, but because they were overseas customers, they count as export sales. Yeah,
because they're bringing money in from abroad.
Yeah.
So for instance, if you run a conference locally in most countries, there's a local tourist board or something that might help you, because they want to bring in the tourist pounds or tourist dollars or tourist euros to wherever it is, because people will spend more than just the ticket price of going there. They'll also stay somewhere. They'll spend money on food. They'll do the touristy things while they're around.
Yeah.
Cool.
I've got a friend who's British but Australian citizen, and he runs conferences every year out there. I must alert him to this, because he could probably get some help from the Gold Coast, whatever it is.
Sometimes they'll give you. It depends. It's different in every country. Sometimes they'll give you money. Sometimes they'll subsidise a venue. Sometimes they'll just help you get discounts on local venues and things like that. Yeah. Sometimes they'll help you with the marketing and spreading the word.
Wow.
So it all depends on the setup.
Yeah. That's amazing. And then, okay, so coming back to the awards thing, because again, that's not something that most businesses think about doing. I mean, if you had to say to me, why don't you enter an award? I would think, oh my God, the form filling would be endless. Did you, yeah, it is, isn't it?
Well, I mean, that's what it feels like.
Yes. So did you do the form filling yourself, or did you have one of your, what they call those people who used to work for you?
That particular one, the Board of Trade Award, you had to be recommended by someone who worked for the DIT. So who's aware of the export work. So we went through, or I went through, and I attended a passport to export 2-day training course many years back now. So I was on the radar for them, and they want to track the success of that. So every time you make an export abroad, you would report it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, and not a lot of detail, you know, just like what country, when, how much roughly.
Yeah.
And then it adds up. So for me, it was, they were pleased that it was someone selling services and knowledge, because most of the examples are like you say, people think exporting is physical goods.
Yeah.
And then I fairly swiftly reached like 17 countries exported to, because you would on the conference circuit, you know. I could have probably gone more than that, but what happens is if you go somewhere and you're any good, you get invited back, so your diary fills up.
Yeah, yeah. And there's only you.
And there was only me. Although I did train someone up, who Vasilis,
Vasilis, yes.
Who ended up doing some of the workshops and some of the conference speaking as well.
Yeah.
So that we could actually do 2 countries at once.
Yeah.
Because what does happen is, and I noticed this almost immediately, there are obviously really popular days for conferences. So you'll get 3 invites for different conferences, and they're all delivered on the same 1 or 2 days in different countries. And you're like,
Yeah, is that what do you think? The end of the week?
Yeah. And it's different in different countries, but there are definitely key moments. And for me, August was always the busiest period, and that's Southeast Asia. So I'd just be out there for 3 or 4 weeks.
So is that their winter down there then?
Oh, well, it doesn't really have it, do they? It's just.
No, I suppose not. Well, what's the word I'm looking for?
Just
relatively speaking.
Yeah. So Frinzo, I was really intrigued when I mentioned that this week's topic would be exporting. You were like, oh, I'll know nothing about that. But I've chatted to you many times and realized that you have clients abroad from time to time. Yes?
I do. Yes, lots. I have to get up at 8 o'clock on a Thursday morning to speak to 2 ladies in New Zealand. And I've also got Australian clients, American clients, and British clients. So
does their money come from abroad to you?
It does, yes.
So you're an exporter?
I suppose I am. I'd had no idea. Well, there you go.
And so now the question you'll start asking yourself is, how many countries do you export to?
Well, different. I had a Swiss client just before Christmas. Mm-hmm. Not many in Europe, to be honest. So I think I could probably say someone in Portugal. Yeah, so I don't know, 5, 8.
Well, that's pretty good. Considering you're like, I don't export, already you're doing 8 countries.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Look at that. Nicola, the exporter. And what do you export? Knowledge.
I do, indeed. Hard won. Hard won knowledge.
Yeah, hard won knowledge.
Puzzled through.
That's what it was. One of the things
that's why I was so interested in what you were saying about research and develop last week, because I spent 40% of my time learning new stuff so that I can disseminate it to my clients all around the world.
Yeah, we try stuff out, don't we? We learn, we experiment, and then other people learn from us.
Yeah.
And if we remember, we charge them for that knowledge, or we give it away for free on a podcast.
Yes. Yeah. Well, in fact, one of my one of my most, I suppose you call him most successful client. No, probably second most successful client. He's just launching his new podcast this week. And yeah, so I'm really excited about that. He's done a fantastic job on it.
Give him a plug. Tell me about it.
Oh, it's Roger Dodge Woodall, who runs Bournemouth Sevens, which is a thing that puts together sports teams and music for over 3 days in Bournemouth. And they have 30,000 people go there every year. And he's been in the events industry for, well, hundreds of years. He's only young. He's really young. He's at late 30s, I think. And he's just he's interviewing all sorts of people, like the guy who runs Formula One, the guy who runs rugby in the UK, people who run really big music festivals, got the Boardmasters guy. none of whom names I know, but I recognise the events that he's talking about. So his podcast is going to be really interesting, and it's all about how to run successful events.
Okay, so is that the rugby sevens? Is that?
It's Bournemouth Sevens. Is they started with 30 rugby teams and 30 netball teams going down to Bournemouth to play sports during the day and party at night. You can just imagine what that was like.
I can. For quite a few years, I sponsored the Sussex Merlins, which is the.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Sussex Rugby League Unit. Whatever the equivalent. They would often submit teams to the sevens tournaments. So.
Yeah, I really do think you're going to absolutely love his podcast. I mean, I've just listened to the first episode of it because he wanted me to have a, just because we were talking about getting really brutally honest on podcasts and how engaging it can be, and he was just wanting me to listen to his first one to make sure he hadn't said anything that would tarnish his reputation, because he's got a really good reputation. So, and he didn't. Of course, he didn't. I knew he wouldn't, because you don't get that successful without having some sort of filter going on. But the podcast environment is very intimate, so not so much when it's a video, but when it's a listening and you can't see people, it becomes very intimate. And people do say really interesting things sometimes.
I don't think the video stops us.
No, I suppose not, because it actually just feels like talking to a mate. So we could, but then I get to edit it afterwards, so that's all right.
So you're more confident.
Yeah. So coming back to exporting then, So why? What kind of companies do you think would benefit from finding out more about exporting, and what kind of? So now we found out I'm an exporter without realizing it. What should I do?
Or why? Yeah. First of all, it's like, for me, the question was, why should you export? So I ran a company based in Brighton, in the UK, in IT or behavioral psychology in terms of what I sell, and it's a really tough competitive market. There are so many other amazing companies around Brighton that local companies can spend their money on, not the same type of project, but another thing that might give them the edge that they need.
So your competition is another kind of service or product rather than a direct competitor for gamification.
Correct. Yeah. Right? Because there's so many potential ways you could spend any spare money that you're investing in your company on a project. And I was looking at, do I go national? Yeah, do I look at a bigger market? Which seems like quite a tough call when you're struggling potentially locally. Yeah, because it's so competitive in Brighton. And then I went on this 2-day course and realized that actually maybe going abroad would be easier. And it turns out it's a much easier sell. Okay, so oddly enough, if you're willing to travel and be seen as international, you get an extra level of kudos, which means there's less people competing against you. You're seen in a different light. I ended up competing against less people for projects. Yeah, so instead of always being like one of 5 competing for something, it might be they've just come to me. Yeah, and that's a much better place to be.
So going back in time, when you made that decision, apart from hiring someone who knew about SEO and how to get you top of the search engines, for the key phrases.
Good idea.
That was one of your better moves. What happened? Joking aside, how did you go about doing what you did to raise your exporting profile?
Do you know what? I started quite simply. First of all, I told people I was networking with that that's what I was doing. Yeah. So I was looking for opportunities. So people are quite helpful like that. I decided to travel to a few conferences under my own steam just to get a feel for it, because I started by thinking the export route for me would be speaking at conferences, and I'd get to learn a bit more. And actually, the first conference I went to was in Paris. It was on gamification for human resources, and I put the word about with the organizers that I was interested in speaking on gamification at a future conference, and I got an invite to speak at a conference, and they actually even paid for my flights. No fee at that point. No. And if you do the talk well, which went very well and got good feedback, word spreads. And
you get client inquiries and you get asked to speak well. Yeah, especially if because what people might not know is there's sort of 3 different ways of speaking. There's the one that I've done quite a bit of, which is when you get to speak on a big stage and then you make an offer at the end, so that you pay your own costs and expenses, and then people buy your product or service at the end, or they come and speak to you and then can become clients. And then you've got the ones where you don't get paid to speak, but it's for kudos and exposure and things, and they may or may not pay your expenses. I've done a few of those as well. And I've done some really nice ones, actually. I've been put up in some very nice hotels. And then you've got the ones where they actually pay a speaker fee and cover all your expenses as well. So
I was expecting to just pay my own way for 4 conferences, something like that, a year, to get a bit of exposure internationally. I had a business advisor at the time who just says, look, as soon as you've spoken once abroad, we can put international speaker, international business in your titles, and you can charge more. So that was the underlying thing. I wasn't necessarily going to export. Okay, it was to be able to put my prices up by being an international expert. Yeah, that set me off on this track. But once I did it, I quite agree. There are those 3 types. I've never done the one where you do a sell at the end. In fact, my talking style that tends to be more inspirational or educational in terms of teaching people stuff.
Well, let me
I forget to do a call for action at the end.
Yeah, well, I've done quite a lot of high-profile things like that, high-pressure things like that, where you're expected by the organizer. In fact, they don't put you on the stage if you don't sell in bucket loads because they take half the money.
Right.
And they're often low-price tickets on those things just to get people to commit and turn up. But they're actually, I sort of quite enjoy it, but it's sort of quite terrifying. But then I've done a few where, but I did do very well. I had a really good response because I was very inspirational and educational. And then there's 2 ways to do quite good calls to action. One is to have a book, which I had nicolasbook.com. So I just say, I'll give you a copy of my book. It's on Amazon now, and you flash up a slide that says, it's on Amazon now, and the audio is X amount, and the paperback's X amount. Then you say, just go to nicolasbook.com, and you can download free copies. And I mean, I got something like, I spoke at a 200 person conference, and I got something like 50 downloads in the next 5 minutes, which meant that I'd added people to my mailing list. Because, of course, they had to opt in to get the free copies. And then at the end, I made an offer, and I made it a very brief offer. Sometimes the offers could go off 15 minutes. I don't like those. And I especially don't like the ones where you start off at this is worth this, this is worth this, and this is worth it. And you bore the audience in or hypnotize them into buying it. And I did a 5-minute close. I've said, I've given you as much as I can today. I'm going to be around for the whole weekend. Do come and talk to me. I'll help you if I can on the spot. Alternatively, if you know already that you would like to work with me, this is how you do it, and you go to this page. So it really was incredibly brief, and 30% of the room signed up, which was very exciting. But then I had the issue of a lot of them signed up for a lot of things. There was actually he was very good. It was 3 days worth of speakers, and only 3 people were allowed to make an offer. So 1 on each day. And I was the one on the second day, I think. But 30% of the room, but a lot of them didn't remember what they signed up for. So when they pitched up, I had to go through the process of re-educating them about how I could help them.
Well, that's right.
But it's good fun, and it's a real rush. You can imagine it's a real rush to have a stampede of people like that.
Yeah. So the reasons for doing it, one is to be international. One is, for me, is to make it easier to sell. Yeah, it's actually easier, particularly if you're coming from a country like the UK. At the moment, we still have a reasonable reputation abroad, although, Brexit and different all of that hammers away at that and makes it harder.
Yes.
But, there's still generally people like the people from the UK, even if the overall picture is now different.
The political picture is a bit tarnished, yes. Of course, the major benefit why I love to go and speak overseas is to get me out of the house and go to places that I wouldn't choose to go on holiday normally. And so you get to experience parts of the world, especially if you can tack on a few days off afterwards. I like to do it afterwards. I don't like to holiday with something hanging over me. I'd rather do the thing than have a week off afterwards in the country.
To explore and make the most of it.
Yeah. And of course, it's all been paid for by the gig. So you're, pretty much having a free holiday in a way.
I guess so. Although, it takes time and you've got to prep quite a lot for it.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
You might. I don't. I know it all inside out and just wing it on stage, but different styles, Pete.
Different styles, yeah. For me, it's hard work.
Yeah. What's the other benefits then? So how did you end up getting to become an ambassador for export then? Champion for export.
Champion.
Not just ambassador, you're a champion.
Well, I mean, I mostly said yes to that because as a gamification expert, it sounds great to have champion in your title for something.
Of course it does, yes.
Yeah. But the key thing is there's now a few hundred export champions because they've been adding to the group, and we all represent some slightly different take on exports. My bit, the reason I was invited was because small business, able to sell knowledge, show people, and the idea is we just go and talk about export and how it's doable. Yeah, you can just try it.
So you're speaking about exporting to other businesses who might become clients.
Yeah.
So it's a marketing.
Yes. Well, I mean, generally, I'm just helping them. So I went and spoke at an event which was a bunch of food and gin exporters.
Awesome.
Who were all going on a trip to Singapore, for instance. And I was like, well, I don't know much about food and gin export, although, obviously I eat and drink, so I could talk about that. But I've done a lot of work in Singapore. And a friend I went to school with is based in Singapore, and he's really into gin and jazz. So I was like, well, I'll put you all talked about the export and what it's like in Singapore, and then I put them in touch with my friend, and I think he took some of them on a gin bar tour, and
awesome.
You make things happen, don't you?
Yeah, you do. You're great at putting people together. So that's really cool. And how would one, if someone's watching this and thinking, hang on a minute, I'm an exporter, how could you take it forward, and who should you talk to?
You should look for export champions. Look like me, have a chat, ping me an email, and I'll put you in touch. But basically, the DIT has a bunch of trade advisors of various types, each with different specialities. So either areas of the world or types of industry. So my last trade advisor was a specialist in the creative industries. She's actually retired, so I've got a new one I'm learning the ropes with. But he's very helpful. And so they'll try and match you up with someone who's got skills that are complementary, and then they'll try and put you together with things. So if you've got a particular country in mind, then they'll put you together with a local embassy or the local consul, that sort of thing. I was just about to go to Cyprus in March for a conference, so I got introduced to the local embassy there. They put me in contact with a bunch of different universities and other things that were relevant to me that I asked for, and then helped me arrange a bunch of meetings that were going to happen while I was there.
Right.
We didn't go, but all but one of those meetings I managed to turn into a virtual remote one.
Yeah.
And I've since done the conference online from here. It's
And does it? Okay. First of all, what's your email address? Because you just said people could email you.
Pete.Jenkins@gamification+, that's a PLUS.UK.
Yeah, cool.
If you Google Pete Jenkins and gamification, you'll find me on my websites. And
of course you will, because you're an expert SEO. Yeah. So, and does it cost anything in all of this?
No, only, as always, only time and attention. Yeah, so a lot of the DIT services for this are free because they've got targets to increase exports as a percentage of GDP. It's a particularly tough time to do that with Brexit and COVID. So, they're having to run really hard just to stay in the same place, let alone expand the percentage. And they're doing whatever they can. I mean, last week I was actually on a cool meet and greet with other export champions. And we're all managing to export and do extra bits of work. It's just harder than it was before.
Yeah.
But it's still easier than selling locally.
Yes. Well, that's cool. I must definitely investigate then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the key thing is to think about what countries you're interested in traveling to. Why not? That's how I started. Yeah, I was like, where am I interested in traveling to? And I would sometimes take a lower fee if it was a place I hadn't been to. So I did a workshop in Sri Lanka, which was way under my normal fee, but I'd always wanted to go there.
Yeah. I've always wanted to go to Vietnam and Cambodia and Italy. Well, I've been to Italy a few times, but I'd love to go back. I love Italy. I know
I quoted once for a couple of days' work in Vietnam, and then I looked it up later to find out why they said no, and my 2 days' work was equivalent of their average annual wage. So.
Oh dear, yes, of course. And of course, I'm always keen to go to Greece. We know that. Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay, so what else would you like people to know about exporting, if anything?
It'd be really interesting to know what people have exported that isn't a product. Yeah. Okay. And also, I mean, one of the bits I don't know much about is e-commerce and products and sending. So I mean, I think most people panic when they think about VAT in different countries and shipping and distribution, but learn one country at a time. That's my there.
Yeah, because you had to, when you've put on things, you said you had to set up a company there and do all the VAT stuff in. But when you're a speaker, you don't need to do that. You just need to do that if you're organising the conference.
Yeah, so that was a very specific VAT issue. If you run an event in another country in Europe, it's actually simpler to run a conference outside of Europe. I hadn't realised that at that time. But
yeah, well, you're
in Europe, so I had to do that.
Yeah, typical poke it style was you just thought, oh, that sounds like a good idea. Let's see if we can do that. Cool. Well, I've got somebody who, if you wanted to talk to about e-commerce, I could put you in touch. He does e-commerce from Australia. He also has he does e-commerce into India, Hong Kong, Europe, and America, and he's just starting in the UK again.
I think the other bit I'd be interested to hear about, and you probably know about this, is actually people who sell online training courses. Yeah. Yes,
that's me.
That's you. Oh, okay. So what countries have you sold online training courses to?
Well, all of them, probably. Well, that's what that's what I do. I sell an online training course with for a year with live mentoring support. So every Thursday I do 2 calls, one at 8 a.m. for the down unders and one at 11 a.m. for the UK and Europe based people and America as well. And then we've also got a private Facebook group where people interact on the group, so they can get answers at any time from each other. And I obviously dip in and out. What do you want to know specifically?
Well, I just think if anyone wants to start with exporting, even if they've got a product, they could start by just selling training about their product, things like that. So how would you go about turning your knowledge, packaging it up, putting it on a website and selling it? And I was thinking, Nickola's probably the person to ask.
That's exactly what I do, and that's exactly what I help people do. So with Roger, for example, he's turning his 20 odd years of events organizing experience into an online training course, and he's busy building, as well as doing the podcast, he's busy recording the video modules, and there are various platforms you can use. I mean, for years I've had it on my own platform, on my own forum, but really people want to be on things that look like social media and that act like social media. So that's why I have one of my support groups on Facebook, although I'm rapidly losing faith with Facebook. So I've moved one of my courses to Thinkific, which is really very nice and very easy and very affordable to use. You know, they have different packages from $47 a month to $97 a month, and it's all slightly gamified in that, you know, that you can see where you're up to, and you can click the button to move to the next lesson, and it marks the last one done. So they bring so, and it's really good fun to put it together. And you've done it yourself for what you teach, and it's about breaking things down into modules. When my first ever thing I made in 1999 and exported it around the world, the Money Gym, with
I want from an export point of view, do you have a list of all the countries you sold it to over the years?
No, not anymore.
Or stuff since?
Well, I mean, it's
because I'm guessing you're way above 8 countries that you've exported to.
Yeah, in the past, I would think it's gone at least to 20, 30, something like that. Had clients all around the world for the Money Gym.
So it's growing every time we chat. The number of countries you've sold to.
Yes, well, I wasn't going to go back 25 years, but I kind of want me to.
Why not?
And the thing was I learned about that. Distance learning was just very, very new in 1998, 99. And the reason I learned about it was because I read an article in a London newspaper about coaching becoming a big thing. And I was in the middle of, I wanted to make a career transition. And I thought, that sounds good. So I bought a book by a chap called Thomas Leonard, who was an American. And of course, when you buy a book, there's something that, you know, he really had the marketing sewn up in those days. So there was something inviting you to go to something. And I think it was a free conference in Las Vegas. And I don't know why, I just thought, I'd really like to go to Las Vegas on my own. And in the end, I didn't end up going on my own. I ended up going with a couple of other Brits because I was introduced by my coach to 2 other coaches who happened to be going to Vegas. And this guy was Thomas Leonard. He wrote this fabulous book, which is still really good now, called Be Your Own Life Coach, I think it was called.
Okay.
And anyway, it was a great book, and it changed my mind about lots of things. And then he followed up that conference with selling us all a course, which arrived in a great big box of folding. Yeah, you know, but I never opened the box because it was all online. All the PDFs and audios were accessible online, and he did everything by email, PDF, and audio. Because back in the day,
you don't need a fancy platform.
No, you didn't. And he did live webinars and all sorts that I dialed into from the UK. It was incredible. You know, the only thing that's been added to it now is video. That's the only thing that's different. Teleconferencing was a thing back in 1998, 1999. And he was
exporting. We haven't come very far, man. What's next?
Well, you know, video's the next thing, isn't it? That was the thing. Video was the thing that made it much more engaging for people, because 30% of the world's population are visual, and I find it very difficult to listen to a podcast, but I find it very easy to. We're not doing much here; it's just the talking heads. But I find it much easier to keep my attention when there's a talking head.
Something to visually focus on.
Yeah. All you've got to do is really break your. I mean, I've worked.
Go on, you go on. I'll see if I can remember.
Sorry,
you carry on.
Well, I was just going to thinking about the different kinds of clients I've worked with. I mean, there was my cement specialist. There was a super yacht skipper who wanted to teach other people how to. He was the guy who's the big racing guy? Is it Bernie Ecclestone? I think he drove Bernie's super yacht around the world for him. So it was always in the right place when he wanted to use it. And his wife was a top cordon bleu chef, so you know she would cater for the and this guy wanted to turn his knowledge about becoming a super yacht skipper into a course for potential super yacht skippers. That worked really well. Who else? Oh, there was a guy who did hydroponic wheatgrass manufacture in Ireland. How to set up your own hydroponic wheatgrass farm and sell the contents, the proceeds.
So
which is a little sort of,
it's big business at the moment.
Yeah, well, it's all done with water, isn't it? That's what they're going to do on the space stations, isn't it? Grow things hydroponically.
It's a big thing in Egypt. I judged some business pitches while I was out there for another workshop once. You know, one of these random things where the room next door knew I was in this room giving my workshop on gamification, and they said, "We're short a judge on this business pitching competition. Can you stick around at the end of your workshop and be a judge?"
Yeah, nice.
But they were all farming and agrarian type business ideas. Hydroponics was fascinating because the sheer yield you can get from the same amount of water compared to like watering a field, it's like 4 or 5 or 7 times more.
Wow. I mean, I haven't come across an expertise yet that I couldn't turn into a course. There's a challenge for you, people out there.
I like that.
So, you know, I've just got that kind of brain. My life changed when I discovered mind mapping, because I was able to take vast amounts of information and organize it down into coherent parts that I could then remember better. It helped my memory as well. Holding things in my head, not for me, but mind mapping is brilliant. And that's what you do. You start, then you think, okay, so with the money gym, I thought, okay, what 10 things would I have wanted to know about money before I started on this 5-year journey to learn how money worked, and how would I share it with someone else in a logical order? And then I thought, okay, so with each of the 10 modules, which 3 books would they need to read? Which videos would they need to watch? You know, so supplementary materials. And it just seems so easy and logical for me. But some people, I suppose you just don't see the wood for the trees, do you, when you're neck deep in your own expertise?
That's why you need to get it out and onto something. I mean, I did that with my course through a spreadsheet, but it's exactly the same thing. It's like,
yes,
what's the overall structure? What does each week entail? What sort of content? What's the activities? Yeah, and so on and so forth. And what's the supporting stuff? And obviously with mine, it's like, what game should we recommend they play that week?
Yeah, to cement the learning.
Mm-hmm.
And with what I do now, the marketing thing, I had to organize it in terms of, if I produce a video this week, then I upload it to YouTube, then I can download the captions, and then you save the audio, and then you edit, and then you top and tail it for the podcast. So there's a sequence to the marketing flow that needed to be taken into account as well. So I don't know, I've just got the kind of brain that can break things down into systems like that. Most surprising to me. And I love it. I find it really, really interesting, especially when it's really obscure expertises. I mean, I had one lady who is a psychic. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to, and she wanted to, she's also, a qualified counselor, and she'd had a very traumatic life experience. So she wanted to help other people who'd been through traumatic life experiences, and all the things that she'd learned that helped her overcome her trauma and her PTSD, and what order that should happen in, so that you're ready for the next stage of your healing. Really interesting.
So a bit like the grief process has to go through in a certain order.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to, and some people jump around and go from step 3 to step 7 and back to step 4 and things like that. So you have to facilitate the different kinds of learning as well. And I'm sure you know all about this. So some people are visual learners, some people are auditory, some people want everything. They can't even start learning something till they know what the end outcome's going to be and the steps they'll cover along the way. Whereas someone like me, I'm not interested in what steps I'm going to cover. I just want to get started with step 1. But I want to go at my own speed.
A dangerous game, yes. But nonetheless one we both have in common.
Yes, we plunge in with absolutely no idea of what's involved. and then I want to learn at my own speed. So I want to be able to cram if I want to, and then ease off if I want to. So
that's I think is one of the most interesting things about an online course. Is that one of the best things you can get is the peer learning, the learning from other people on the course at the same time.
Yeah.
Which means they need to go through it at roughly the same speed. But also, we like to learn at different speeds.
Yes.
So you either need a bigger cohort so that there's enough people at each stage that they can share.
Yeah. Well, I'm involved in quite a complex course at the moment as a student, and what he does is he puts up an Ask Me Anything thing on his Facebook group, and everyone puts their questions on it for that week, and he's got a rolling intake. So every quarter he's taking in new people, so there's always people coming in at the beginning. And yes, you'd think that would frustrate someone who'd been in for, say, 9 months, but actually hearing someone discuss some of the basics again makes you think about your basics again. I definitely do learn well from hearing other people ask questions.
Yeah, but understanding how other people are thinking about the same subject really helps it become clear.
Yeah.
There was a great course I did, the first course I did in gamification that I took part in, but I didn't create, was one on the Coursera platform. And one of the things I really liked about it was you would come up with your, say, you design your own gamified solution for something. And then you get feedback from other participants, but you wouldn't get their feedback until you judged, and fed back on 5 or 6 of your own, of theirs. Oh. Yeah. And reading those other 5 or 6 was the bit that I learned most from.
I've got a website called writingclubworld.com where you can get feedback on your own creative writing, but you have to have given positive feedback to, I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 other people first, which earns you credits to then get feedback on your own. That's good because that makes people do something.
I feel like I gave you that idea about a year or 2 ago.
You might have done, but there was actually another website just like it that was moribund and not being attended to. So I
remember that
pointed my software guy at it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we must crack on because we've only got another 5 minutes as usual. So what are you looking forward to this week?
This week, gosh, well, I've got to reply to a bunch of people who are interested in the awards. I've also got, you know what it's like. I've got a potential new joint venture with someone, which is purely focused on recruitment for gamification. So companies who are looking for their chief gamification officer, that sort of thing.
Oh, okay, nice. Okay.
So, and that's a good fit with all the other things we do with the conference and the awards and
headhunting as well, or just
headhunting recruitment stuff. Oh, so this is a joint venture with a recruitment company. So we're looking at doing that.
We are shocking, aren't we, really?
It doesn't take many of those to make a little bit of money.
Either. No, I can imagine. Yeah.
And
that's a great idea.
enough, I've got a bit of a track record with supporting recruitment companies through CRM systems. When I first started up, we had about half a dozen recruitment companies. So I know the process.
Oh.
I know the lingo that they're using, and it's a fairly good fit. As always, it's just like how much effort do I have to put in?
Yeah, for what reward? Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that sounds like a good fit.
It is a good fit. Tomorrow, I've got my masterclass session called the Gameful Leadership Guild, with my best group at the moment, and I'm introducing a new person into the group as well tomorrow, which is always exciting. And we're running it as basically a hackathon type session on one of the members' apps that they're gamifying. So all my members of my group are going to be critiquing it, asking deeper questions, coming up with gamification ideas. And I can see that that's going to be like my favorite 3 hours of the week, apart from this hour, obviously, in that respect.
Yeah.
What
else? Great.
And
anything? Go on.
I was going to say, and I've got a backlog of work to do, because excitingly, last week was my first full week of work in like 6 months, because my daughter went back to school. But this week, on Monday morning, as she got to the school gates, so she was turned away. And now she's home again until she has a negative COVID test, which of course is very difficult to get hold of. So my getting my Wednesdays back lasted 1 week.
So what? She got sniffles then?
She's got a standard cold like other classmates. Extremely cold, minor cough, not exact equivalent of what you're expecting, but still they're very ultra conservative. They turn you away, send you home.
Yeah.
And
oh dear.
So she's enjoying herself. She had a whole week of school, and then she's back at home again.
Yeah. Okay, so I am looking forward to a big event. Well, exactly. I'm looking forward to a big event in the gold and silver world tomorrow. Mm-hmm. We're not absolutely sure what it is. It might be something to do with Comex and deliverables, but apparently there's going to be a big shake-up tomorrow. And I love change, and I love things that change things, and I love figuring out opportunities from change. So we're all on the edges of our seats for that.
Not to mention,
So I'll let you know. Don't you worry. And of course, by the time this publishes, it will be nearly my birthday. So I'm not telling anyone how old I am. It's older than I would like, put it that way. And I've got no idea what will happen, but I've said I don't want any big fuss, and I just want to go out somewhere nice for dinner locally.
Okay.
So that's what
let's see what we can
do. Phoebes and Nelson, because your birthday was right in the middle of lockdown, wasn't it?
It was. That was fun.
Yeah. You weren't allowed to see anyone apart from your daughter, were you?
I bought a really nice cake, and then I only had to share it between me and my daughter. So there was an upside.
A hidden benefit.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to be cut off any minute now by this draconian software. So do feel free to come over to the private Facebook group and join the Facebook group. Just search PokeIt Podcast on Facebook and you will find us. Totally free of charge, and we'd love to see you in there.
Also, tell us what countries you've exported to.
Yes.
And what country you're from as well when you're doing it.
Good stuff. And don't forget to email Pete with any questions. See you later.
Bye.
Bye. You're listening to the PokeIt Podcast with Pete Jenkins and Nicola Cairncross. You can find Pete at gamificationplus.uk, and you can find Nicola at clicksandleads.com. And do come and join our private Facebook group. Just search PokeIt Podcast on Facebook.